My daughter has always been observant. Too observant, maybe. The kind of kid who notices when you've moved a picture frame 2 inches to the left, or when you're smiling but your eyes aren't quite in on the joke. I used to think it was a gift. Now I know it's the thing that burned my life down and let me rebuild it better. It was a Tuesday. Honeycrisp, her favorite. I was cutting it into those little rabbit shapes she liked, the ones where you notch out 2 triangles to make ears. Dad? Yeah, sweetheart? Why was Mom hugging Mr. Thompson? My knife stopped mid-slice. I didn't look up. 8 years in Army intelligence teaches you one thing above all else. Never let your face betray what your brain is processing. Mr. Thompson? I kept my voice light, curious. Your substitute teacher? Yeah, I saw them yesterday, in the parking lot when Grandma picked me up. She was swinging her legs on the kitchen stool, completely unaware she'd just lobbed a grenade into the middle of my marriage. Mom didn't see me. She was hugging him for a really long time. I finished cutting the apple, set the plate in front of her, forced myself to meet her eyes with a smile. Maybe Mr. Thompson was sad about something, I said. Sometimes adults hug their friends when they're having a hard day. Oh. Emma seemed satisfied with this. She bit into an apple rabbit. Okay. How was the rest of your day? Did you finish that art project? And just like that, I redirected. Watched her face light up as she talked about finger paints and construction paper. But the whole time, a cold calculation was running in the back of my mind. The kind of thinking I used to do when analyzing intercepted communications. Pattern recognition. Anomaly detection. My wife, Megan, had told me she'd been at a lunch meeting yesterday. 12 to 2. A client presentation. After Emma went to bed that night, I did something I'm not proud of. Or maybe I am. I'm still not sure. 3 years ago, I'd installed family tracking apps on all our phones. Megan had agreed to it. We'd both agreed, after a series of carjackings in our neighborhood. Peace of mind, we'd called it. Know where everyone is in case of emergency. I'd never actually checked her location history, not once in 3 years. I'd trusted her. I pulled up the app, scrolled back to yesterday. Her phone had been at Emma's elementary school from 11:43 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., 47 minutes. During her lunch meeting. I sat in the dark living room for a long time after that. Not feeling anything, really. Just processing. The next morning, Wednesday, I told my business partner I'd be taking a late start. Personal errand. Marcus didn't ask questions, one of the reasons I'd hired him to help run the firm 8 years ago. He understood that some things didn't require explanation. I borrowed my neighbor Jerry's Camry, told him mine was making a weird noise and I wanted to compare. He handed over the keys without a second thought. That's the thing about being the reliable neighbor, the one who brings in your trash cans and waves at your kids. People trust you. I parked across the street from Westfield Elementary at 11:15 a.m. Found a spot in the shade of an old oak tree, angled so I could see the parking lot near the portable classrooms. And I waited. At 11:52 a.m., Megan's white Audi turned into the lot. She was supposed to be at her office. She'd texted me that morning about a crazy day with back-to-back meetings. The message had included a stressed face emoji. I watched her park near the portables. Watched her check her makeup in the rearview mirror. I could see her head tilting, the way she does when she's making sure her lipstick is perfect. Then she stepped out. She was wearing the green dress. The one I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. The one she'd said made her feel beautiful. A door opened on the nearest portable classroom. A man walked out, tall, athletic build, that specific kind of handsome that some women describe as distinguished. He was wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up in a way that looked casual but deliberate. Derek Thompson. I recognized him from the school directory photo Emma had shown me when he'd started as her substitute teacher in January. He's really nice, Dad. He does funny voices when he reads to us. They talked. I couldn't hear them from this distance, but I could read body language. Megan's posture was different than I'd seen in years. Shoulders back, chin tilted up, laughing at something he said. He reached out and touched her lower back, and she leaned into it like a cat arching into a hand. Then she kissed him. Not a friendly peck, not a misinterpretable greeting. She grabbed the front of his shirt, pulled him toward her, and kissed him like they were teenagers behind the bleachers. His hands went to her hips. I had my phone out. Recording? 32 seconds of footage before they finally pulled apart. 32 seconds. That's how long it takes to confirm that your entire marriage is a lie. Thompson looked around before they separated. Not nervously, that's what struck me. His head movements were smooth, practiced. He knew exactly which angles to check. The portable classrooms blocked the view from the main building. The dumpster shielded them from the street. He'd done this before, probably in this exact spot. This wasn't his first time. I sat in Jerry's Camry for another 20 minutes after Megan drove away, watching Thompson walk back into his classroom, watching kids file in for the afternoon session. I didn't feel rage. I'd expected rage. What I felt instead was cold, clear. Like all the noise in my head had suddenly gone silent, leaving only the clean hum of purpose. I drove home and went back to work. That afternoon, I picked Emma up from school like normal, walked into the main office, signed the checkout sheet, smiled at the secretary who'd known me for 3 years. "Hey, Mr. Cole. Emma's just getting her backpack from her cubby. Thanks, Diane. No rush." And there he was. Derek Thompson walked through the office on his way to the copy room, a stack of papers in his hand. He glanced my way, nodded politely, the standard acknowledgement between men who don't really know each other. "Mr. Cole, right?" He paused, shifted the papers to his left hand, extended his right. "Emma's dad? Derek Thompson. I've had her in class a few times this year." I shook his hand. Firm grip, confident eye contact. The handshake of someone who'd spent years perfecting his first impression. "She talks about you at home," I said. "Says you do funny voices when you read." Thompson laughed, a warm, self-deprecating sound. "I do try to make it interesting. Kids that age, you lose them if you just read from the page. Emma's a great student, by the way. Really sharp, asks the best questions." "That's good to hear." Emma bounded into the office then, backpack bouncing, and Thompson gave her a wave. "See you tomorrow, Emma. Don't forget we're starting that new book." "I won't, Mr. Thompson." I walked her to the car, helped her with her seatbelt, drove home in silence while she chattered about her day. And the whole time, I was thinking about his hand on my wife's hip, his mouth on her mouth, his voice calling her babe or sweetheart, or whatever pet names they used when they were alone. The man had looked me in the eyes and shaken my hand and smiled about my daughter's reading comprehension, and 15 minutes earlier he'd been kissing my wife in the parking lot. Some people are born without certain parts. That's the only explanation I have. There's just something missing in them. A circuit that never connected, a wire that never got plugged in. Normal human beings can't do what Thompson did and then make small talk about funny voices. That night, I gave an Oscar-worthy performance. "Hey, babe." Megan breezed through the door at 6:15, dropping her bag on the kitchen counter. What a day. The Hartwell presentation ran way over, and then traffic on 95 was a nightmare. "Sounds rough." I was chopping vegetables for stir-fry. I didn't look up. "Emma's finishing homework in her room. Said she'd be down in 10. "Perfect." She came up behind me, wrapped her arms around my waist. A hug. Just like the kind Emma had described. "I missed you today," she murmured against my back. "Missed you too." The lie came out smooth. Easy. I wondered how many times she'd done the same thing to me. Over the next 4 days, I became someone I didn't recognize. Or maybe I became who I'd always been underneath. The intelligence analyst who'd spent years piecing together patterns from fragments. The soldier who'd learned that information is the only weapon that matters. I pulled Derek Thompson's public records first. Basic stuff, available to anyone with an internet connection and the patience to dig. Derek Allen Thompson, 41 years old. Certified substitute teacher in our district for 3 years. Previously employed by Ridgeview Elementary in a different district from 2018 to 2020. Before that, Lincoln Charter School from 2016 to 2018. 2 schools. 2 districts. And according to the scattered digital breadcrumbs I could find, he'd left both positions mid-year. Teachers don't leave mid-year, not unless something forces them out. Next, I checked our joint credit card statements. Megan handled most of our personal finances. She was good with numbers, enjoyed it even, but I had full access to everything. I just never had reason to look. 3 months of charges painted a very clear picture. The Madison Hotel, 20 minutes outside town. $180 per night, appearing twice weekly since early March. I counted 23 stays. Over $4,000. Lunch at Armand's Bistro. Lunch at the Capitol Grill. Lunch at Cafe Luna. Always between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Always on days when she'd told me about client meetings or working lunches. And then there was the charge that made my jaw tighten. $412.87 from Harrison's fine jewelry and watches. The men's section. She'd bought him a watch. With our money. While I was at home cutting apples into bunny shapes for our daughter. I drove to Harrison's the next day during my lunch break. Told the salesman I was looking for a watch similar to one my wife had purchased recently. Could they pull up the receipt? Of course, sir. Do you have the card number? I gave him the last 4 digits. He typed, frowned, typed again. Ah, here it is. The Tissot gentleman. Excellent choice. She mentioned it was an anniversary gift. Did she? Very sweet. Said she wanted something classic but not too flashy. He smiled. Your anniversary must be coming up? Something like that. I bought myself a coffee mug on my way out. A small purchase just to have an excuse for being there if Megan ever saw the charge. She never noticed. On day 5, I found the burner phone. It was in her gym bag, zipped into the interior pocket where she usually kept her earbuds. A cheap, prepaid smartphone, the kind you can buy at any convenience store for $40. I didn't touch it. Didn't want to leave any evidence I'd discovered it. I just photographed it through the mesh of the bag pocket, documenting its existence. That night, I stood in Emma's doorway and watched her sleep. She was curled around her stuffed elephant, the one she'd had since she was 3. Her face was peaceful in that way only children's faces can be. Unlined by worry or betrayal, or the knowledge that people who love you can still destroy you. I made a decision standing there. This was going to end. But it was going to end on my terms. Not in a screaming match. Not in tears and accusations and thrown dishes. It was going to end surgically. Precisely. Megan had no idea who she'd married. Week 2, I went hunting. My cybersecurity firm handles corporate investigations, background checks, digital forensics. We've helped Fortune 500 companies track down insider threats and assisted law firms with evidence gathering for litigation. I'm good at my job. Better than good. I'd never turned those skills toward my own life before. Thompson's employment history was the first thread I pulled. Both previous schools, Ridgeview Elementary and Lincoln Charter, had something in common. HR departments that got very quiet when I called, pretending to be a reference checker for a hiring company. I can confirm that Mr. Thompson was employed here from August 2018 through March 2020, the Ridgeview coordinator said carefully. I'm not able to provide additional details regarding the circumstances of his departure. Can you at least confirm he left in good standing? Long pause. I'm not authorized to characterize his departure in any way. You'd need to speak with our legal department. Same story at Lincoln Charter. Same careful language. Same brick walls. But public records told a different story. Court filings. Divorce proceedings. I found Linda Brennan on a Tuesday night, cross-referencing parent-teacher organizations at Ridgeview Elementary during Thompson's tenure with divorce filings in the same county from 2019. It only took 3 hours of searching. Linda Brennan née Whitfield. Divorced in 2019 from James Brennan. Custody of their 2 children awarded to the father, citing moral fitness concerns. She'd lost everything. I sent her an email from a new address, kept it brief. Ms. Brennan, I'm gathering information about Derek Thompson, who I believe was a substitute teacher at your children's school. I think he hurt my family too. If you're willing to talk, I can be reached at this address. I understand if you'd rather not respond. She responded in 47 minutes. I've been waiting 4 years for someone to believe me. The coffee shop was in a town neither of us lived in, 30 minutes from anywhere that mattered. Linda Brennan was already there when I arrived, a woman in her early 40s with tired eyes and a kind of wariness in her posture that I recognized. The look of someone who'd been hurt badly and was still waiting for the next blow. Patrick? She half stood when I approached. Thanks for meeting me. I wasn't sure you would actually show up. Thanks for being willing to talk. I sat across from her. I know this probably isn't easy. Easy? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Nothing about Derek Thompson has ever been easy, except falling for his act. That part was the easiest thing I've ever done. She told me everything. She'd been married for 12 years when Thompson started substituting at Ridgeview. Her marriage wasn't perfect. She and James had been growing apart for years, the way couples sometimes do when careers and kids and mortgages crowd out everything else. She'd mentioned it once, casually, at a parent-teacher conference. Just a throwaway comment about how things had been hard lately. That's all he needed, Linda said, stirring her coffee. One crack in the armor, one sign of vulnerability. Within a month, he was everywhere. Volunteering to help with my son's reading group. Bumping into me at school pickup. He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. How long did it last? 5 months. She looked at the table. I knew it was wrong. I knew it the whole time, but he made me feel seen. That's the only word for it. James hadn't really looked at me in years. Derek looked at me like I was the most interesting woman in the world. How did it end? I tried to break it off. In April, I think. I'd started feeling guilty, looking at my kids and feeling like a fraud. I told Derek I couldn't do it anymore. She paused. That's when I found out who he really was. Thompson had threatened her. Not overtly. He was too smart for that. He'd simply mentioned casually that if she ended things, he might need to process his feelings by talking to someone. Maybe James. Maybe some of the other parents at school. He'd smiled when he said it, she told me, like it was a joke between friends. He said he'd make sure the story favored him, Linda said. Those exact words. And then 2 weeks later, before I could figure out what to do, James found out anyway. Derek had already been talking to people, mentioning things at school events, dropping hints. By the time the divorce happened, half the town thought I was an unstable homewrecker who'd seduced my kid's teacher. The custody decision? James's lawyer painted me as morally unfit. Derek gave a deposition. Very reluctant, very sad. Said he'd been manipulated by a troubled woman. He was so convincing. Her voice cracked. My own kids looked at me like they didn't know who I was. I see them twice a month now. They're 13 and 15. They barely talk to me. I sat with that for a moment. Let the weight of it settle. He didn't just have affairs, I said. He destroyed people afterward. It wasn't enough for him to get what he wanted, Linda agreed. He had to make sure you had nothing left. Some kind of, she searched for the word, power thing, control. I don't know. Whatever it was, it's broken inside him. Before we left, Linda gave me something. Screenshots she'd saved for years, waiting for someone to care. Messages from Thompson to a friend named Ryan Caldwell, another teacher at a school where Thompson had worked briefly. In the messages, Thompson bragged about another conquest and discussed his technique for identifying which mothers were vulnerable. The language was casual, almost clinical. I held on to these because I thought someday they might matter, Linda said. I couldn't prove anything, couldn't get anyone to listen, but I knew if I waited long enough, he'd do it again. Men like him always do. I drove home that night with a new understanding of what I was dealing with. This wasn't just about my marriage. Derek Thompson was a predator with a system, and Megan was just his latest target. Not that this excused her. Not by a long shot. Victor Hayes' office was on the 14th floor of a downtown high-rise, all glass and chrome and the kind of aggressive minimalism that screamed, "I charge more per hour than you make in a week." His reputation preceded him. The lawyer you hired when you didn't want to just win your divorce, but wanted your ex to feel it for years afterward. I'd expected arrogance. What I got was something more unsettling, genuine enthusiasm. This, Victor said, spreading my evidence across his desk, is one of the most comprehensive documentation packages I've seen from a client in 23 years of practice. He picked up a printout of Megan's hotel charges. You've got the video, you've got the financial records, you've got location data and a documented pattern of deception. He looked up at me. Please tell me you didn't obtain any of this illegally. Joint credit cards, shared location app she consented to, video taken from a public space. I'd been careful. Everything here was either publicly accessible or within my rights as a spouse. Good. Victor leaned back in his chair. Now, I have to give you the standard speech. In this state, adultery doesn't directly affect asset division. Marital fault isn't a primary consideration in property settlements. But it's extremely relevant in custody disputes. If you can demonstrate that your wife has shown poor judgment, has exposed your daughter to inappropriate situations, has systematically deceived the family, that creates a pattern of behavior that calls her fitness as a custodial parent into question. He tapped the hotel receipts. And these? This is dissipation of marital assets. She spent over $4,000 of family money on hotel rooms for her affair. Another few hundred on gifts. We can claw that back in the divorce, every penny. I want primary custody of Emma. I think we can get it. Victor pulled out a legal pad. Here's my advice. Don't change anything yet. Don't confront her. Don't give her any indication you know. Let her keep going. Let her keep spending, keep lying, keep digging herself deeper. The more evidence we have, the stronger our position. How long? 2-3 more weeks would be ideal. I want to see if there's more we can document. Patterns of absence from work, other expenditures, anything that shows this is a sustained pattern of deception rather than a one-time lapse in judgment. And what about the lover? Victor raised an eyebrow. What about him? He's a teacher, at my daughter's school. He's done this before. I have evidence of at least 2 other women at previous schools, similar patterns. Relationships with married mothers, sudden departures mid-year. Victor was quiet for a moment, processing. You want to go after his job? I want to make sure he can never do this to anyone else's family. That's not strictly divorce-related. No, it's personal. Victor smiled, a thin, sharp expression that made me understand why his clients paid $750 an hour. I like you, Patrick. Most of my clients come in here crying or screaming or wanting to burn everything to the ground. You've already done half my job for me, and you're thinking 3 moves ahead. He made a note on his legal pad. The school board complaint, that's separate from the divorce. Do it through proper channels. Document everything. If they investigate and he loses his position, that's his problem, not yours. Just make sure you don't mention your wife's involvement directly. Make it about his pattern of behavior, not about your marriage. That was the plan. Good. Victor stood, extending his hand. 2 more weeks of documentation. Then we file. In the meantime, start thinking about logistics. Who stays in the house, how you want visitation structured, whether you want to attempt mediation or go straight to court. Court, I said, without hesitation. She's not going to admit anything voluntarily. She's going to spin this as my fault. I've already seen hints of that in her communications with Thompson. She's been laying groundwork for months. Even better for us. Premeditation destroys credibility. Victor walked me to the door. You're going to be fine, Patrick. This is going to hurt. I won't pretend otherwise. But you've already done the hard work. Now you just have to let it play out. I agreed. But I'd already been planning something else. Something Victor didn't need to know about. Week 4 started with a discovery that changed everything. I'd been running Megan's deleted emails through a forensic recovery tool, standard software in my line of work. Most of it was junk, shopping confirmations, work newsletters. But buried in the recovered data was a thread of messages to an email address I didn't recognize. Derek Thompson's personal account. The messages dated back 5 months. Not 3, as I'd originally estimated. She'd been lying to me since February, but the content of those messages, that's what made my jaw clench for the first time since this whole thing started. He doesn't understand me. He never has. Patrick thinks he's this brilliant analyst, but he can't even see what's right in front of him. I feel trapped, like I'm living someone else's life. You're the first person who's ever really seen me. He scares me sometimes. Not physically, but emotionally. The way he looks at me, like he's analyzing me instead of loving me. And then, the one that made me set down my coffee and stare at the wall for a full minute. If things ever came out, I'd tell them about the emotional abuse, the controlling behavior. No one would blame me for finding comfort somewhere else. Emotional abuse. Controlling behavior. I'd never raised my voice at Megan. Not once in 10 years of marriage. I'd never monitored her friendships, never questioned her spending, never tried to dictate where she went or who she saw. The tracking app had been her idea as much as mine. She'd been the one who'd read the article about the carjackings and suggested we needed a safety system. She wasn't just cheating. She was constructing a narrative, building a defense, rewriting our entire marriage into something ugly and dark to justify her own choices. The betrayal I could understand. People do stupid things. They make mistakes. They get swept up in attention and excitement and the fantasy of something new. But this deliberate assassination of my character, this preemptive strike against who I was, this was something else entirely. I saved the emails, added them to the file, and I started planning something Victor Hayes hadn't authorized. The school board meeting was on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd requested the appointment 2 weeks in advance, through proper channels. Submitted a formal written complaint. Followed every procedure. The board members sat across from me at a long conference table. 3 women and 2 men, all volunteers, all clearly uncomfortable with what they were about to hear. Mr. Cole, the chairwoman said, your complaint references alleged misconduct by Derek Thompson, a substitute teacher at Westfield Elementary. Can you walk us through your concerns? I can do better than that. I opened my folder. I can document them. I laid out everything. Thompson's employment history, 2 districts, 2 sudden mid-year departures, HR departments that couldn't comment on the circumstances. Linda Brennan's written statement, signed and notarized, detailing Thompson's pattern of targeting vulnerable mothers. The screenshots from Ryan Caldwell's messages showing Thompson bragging about his conquests. And the video. 32 seconds of a school employee kissing a parent in the school parking lot during school hours. I didn't mention that the parent was my wife. I didn't have to. The complaint was about Thompson's conduct, not Megan's. This isn't about one incident, I said, watching their faces cycle through shock and discomfort and, finally, grim recognition. This is about a documented pattern of predatory behavior that has followed Mr. Thompson through 3 different schools. He identifies vulnerable parents, cultivates relationships with them, and when those relationships end badly, as they inevitably do, he destroys the women's reputations to protect his own. The vice chairman, a gray-haired man with the look of a retired accountant, cleared his throat. Mr. Cole, these are serious allegations. This woman's statement, he gestured at Linda's notarized letter, is compelling, but it describes events at a different school, under a different administration. With the same perpetrator, I said. And now he's at Westfield, working with children, accessing parents. I'm asking for an investigation, that's all. If I'm wrong, the investigation will prove it. But if I'm right, if there are other parents he's approached here, other women he's targeted, don't you want to know? The room was silent for a long moment. We'll need to review these materials, the chairwoman said finally. Mr. Thompson will be placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of our investigation. We take these matters seriously, Mr. Cole. I know you do, I said. That's why I came to you. Thompson was suspended by Thursday. The school sent a carefully worded email to all parents, citing personnel matter under review and assuring families that student safety remains our highest priority. I read it on my phone while sitting across the dinner table from Megan, who was picking at her salad and pretending everything was normal. 3 more days. That's how long I gave it before she heard through the grapevine. It only took 2. I can't believe this, Megan stormed through the front door that Friday evening, her face flushed with anger. Did you hear about what happened at Emma's school? The substitute teacher? I kept my voice neutral. I saw the email. Some psycho filed a complaint against him. Derek is... She caught herself, started over. Mr. Thompson is apparently suspended. They're treating him like some kind of criminal just because someone made accusations. What kind of accusations? I don't even know. Some disgruntled parent, probably. You know how these things get blown out of proportion? She threw her purse on the counter. He's a good teacher. Emma loves him. Everyone loves him. And now some bitter person is trying to destroy his career. I watched her face as she talked. The righteous indignation, the defensive fury. She had no idea she was defending him to the person who'd taken him down. That's too bad, I said. Emma did seem to like his class. It's more than too bad. It's character assassination. Just because someone makes a complaint doesn't mean it's true. Whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty? I guess the school has to take it seriously. Liability and all that. Well, it's wrong. Megan yanked open the refrigerator, staring at its contents without seeing them. Some people just can't stand to see others succeed. I watched her for a moment. The indignation on her face. The genuine anger at the injustice being done to her lover. She had no idea what was coming. Megan. What? Sit down. Something in my voice must have registered, because she turned slowly, the refrigerator door swinging closed behind her. What's going on? I need you to sit down. She sat. At the kitchen table across from where I was standing. Her face was shifting now, some instinct finally kicking in, telling her that something was wrong. Patrick, you're scaring me. What? I know about the affair, Megan. Silence. The kind of silence that has weight. What? I've known for 3 weeks. I didn't raise my voice, didn't change my tone. I have video of you kissing him in the school parking lot. I have your credit card statements, the hotel rooms, the lunches, the $400 watch you bought him. I have the location data from your phone showing you were at his school when you told me you were at work. I found the burner. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Shock, fear, calculation, and then, this is the part that still amazes me, anger. You were spying on me? I was documenting your betrayal. There's a difference. How dare you? She stepped toward me, finger raised, voice climbing. You went through my things? You tracked my location? What kind of controlling, obsessive? I filed for divorce this morning. I cut her off cleanly. Victor Hayes is handling it. You'll be served at your office on Monday. That stopped her. The anger drained from her face, replaced by something that might have been fear. Patrick, wait. We can talk about this. I know I made a mistake, but a mistake is leaving your wallet at a restaurant. A mistake is forgetting a meeting. You had a 5-month affair with our daughter's teacher. You spent thousands of dollars of our money funding it. You lied to me every single day, looked me in the eyes at dinner, kissed me goodnight, and then drove to hotel rooms to be with another man. I kept my voice level, almost conversational. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. 100 choices made over and over again every single day. Patrick, please. Tears were forming now. The strategic tears that women like Megan learn to deploy on demand. I know I hurt you. I know what I did was wrong. But we can get past this. We can go to counseling. We can… No. Patrick, no. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Do you know what bothers me most? It's not the affair. Affairs happen. People make terrible decisions when they're unhappy or bored or feeling neglected. I could almost understand that. Then what? The emails. Her face went pale. She hadn't realized I'd seen those. You told him I was emotionally abusive, that I was controlling, that you were afraid of me. You painted me as a monster to justify what you were doing. I paused. Have I ever raised my voice at you, Megan? Even once in 10 years? Have I ever told you what you could or couldn't do? Who you could be friends with? Where you could go? I was just… He wanted to hear… I didn't mean… You meant every word. You were building a defense, creating a narrative in case you got caught. I pushed off from the counter. Well, you got caught. And now your narrative is part of my evidence file. I'm sure the judge will find it illuminating. You're going to show those to a judge? I'm going to show everything to a judge. That's how divorce works. Megan's face was cycling through emotions faster than I could track. Fear, rage, desperation, calculation. She was looking for an angle, looking for leverage. That's who she was, I realized. Maybe who she'd always been. Every interaction was a negotiation. Every relationship was a transaction. What about Emma? She finally said. You can't just take my daughter away from me. Our daughter. And I'm not trying to take her away from you. I'm trying to make sure she's raised by someone who knows the difference between truth and whatever story sounds best in the moment. I'm her mother. Yes, you are. And you'll still be her mother after the divorce. You'll have visitation, weekends, holidays, but primary custody is going to me, and that's not negotiable. You can't just decide that. No, a judge will decide it. But when that judge sees the evidence, the hotel rooms, the lies, the emails, the 5 months of systematic deception, I don't think the decision will be difficult. Megan stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. If you were a better husband… I stopped, turned to look at her. Let the silence stretch until she realized what she'd just said. Finish that sentence, I said quietly. Tell me how this is my fault. I'd love to hear it. She couldn't. Or wouldn't. Either way, she let go of her righteous anger and stood there, in the kitchen we'd renovated together 3 years ago, looking like a stranger in her own home. This didn't have to be like this, she finally said. No, I agreed. It didn't. I walked toward the stairs, stopped at the doorway. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. I've already changed the lock on the master bedroom. Your things are still in there. I'm not interested in petty cruelty. Tomorrow we can discuss logistics. But right now, I need you to stay away from me. Patrick, stay away from me, Megan. I climbed the stairs and didn't look back. The fallout unfolded over the next 6 weeks, faster and more complete than I'd anticipated. The school board investigation turned up more than anyone expected. 2 other mothers at Westfield came forward, reporting that Thompson had been inappropriately friendly with them. Nothing physical, but a pattern of attention, of boundary testing, of the same techniques Linda Brennan had described. The grooming behavior of a serial predator who knew exactly how to identify vulnerability. Thompson resigned before they could fire him. But it went on his record anyway. The state licensing board opened their own investigation, and Ryan Caldwell, Thompson's former friend from the text messages, provided a sworn statement. Thompson's teaching license was suspended pending review. Megan was served at her office on a Monday morning. Her assistant later told a mutual friend that she'd gone white as paper when the process server handed her the envelope. She'd excused herself to the bathroom and hadn't come out for 20 minutes. She moved out the following weekend, into an apartment across town. I'd offered to leave instead, but Victor advised against it. Leaving the family home could be construed as abandonment, could weaken my custody position. So Megan packed her things while Emma was at a friend's house, and I sat in my home office pretending to work while I listened to her footsteps going back and forth to her car. She tried to get ahead of the narrative, of course. Called her parents before I could, telling them that I'd been invasive and obsessive, that I'd spied on her and destroyed her privacy. But I'd called them first, the night before she was served. Her father, Robert Ashford, was a deacon at their church, a man who believed in accountability and consequences and the sanctity of marriage vows. I'd driven to their house on Sunday evening and sat in their living room and showed them the evidence. Not all of it, just enough. The video, the credit card statements, the watch. "I'm not here to turn you against your daughter," I'd said, watching the pain move across Robert's face. "I just thought you deserved to know the truth before she tells you her version of it." Her mother, Helen, had started crying. Robert had sat very still, his hands folded in his lap, saying nothing. "I'm sorry," I'd told them. "I know this isn't easy to hear." "No," Robert said finally. "It isn't." He looked at his wife. "Thank you for telling us yourself, Patrick. That took courage." When Megan called them the next day with her version of events, the controlling husband, the invasion of privacy, the unfair persecution, they already knew. Robert told her she wasn't welcome at Sunday dinner until she took responsibility for her choices. Helen refused to take sides publicly, but she called me a week later, her voice thick with tears. "I'm so sorry, Patrick. I don't know what happened to her. I raised her better than this." The custody hearing was scheduled for early October, 8 weeks after I'd filed. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. No grand drama, just fluorescent lights and institutional carpeting and a judge's bench that needed repainting. Megan sat at the opposite table with her attorney, a man named Gerald, something who'd come recommended by one of her colleagues. She was wearing a conservative navy dress, pearls, minimal makeup, the costume of a respectable mother wrongly accused. She didn't look at me. Not once, in the 3 hours we spent in that room. Megan's attorney tried to make me the villain. He painted me as an obsessive investigator who had violated his client's reasonable expectation of privacy and conducted surveillance more appropriate to a criminal investigation than a marriage. "Your Honor," Gerald said, standing at the podium with an air of performative concern, "my client acknowledges that she made mistakes in her marriage. She doesn't deny the affair. But Mr. Cole's response has been disproportionate, even vindictive. He installed tracking software on her phone. He recovered deleted emails from her private accounts. He surveilled her physical movements and recorded her without consent." "All within legal bounds," Victor said, standing before Gerald could build momentum. The tracking app was installed with Mrs. Cole's explicit consent 3 years ago as a family safety measure. The financial records were joint accounts to which Mr. Cole has equal access. The video was recorded from a public roadway of activities occurring in a school parking lot during business hours. Judge Harriet Connor, silver hair, sharp eyes, the kind of woman who'd probably heard every lie and excuse in the book, looked unimpressed with Megan's privacy arguments. "Let me understand this correctly," she said, peering at Megan over her reading glasses. "You're arguing that your husband violated your privacy by discovering evidence of an affair you were having on school property during time you claimed to be at work, using money from joint accounts? The same accounts your husband had equal access to?" Megan's attorney tried to object. The judge waved him off. "Mrs. Cole, I've been doing this for 22 years. I've seen a lot of marriages fall apart, and I've seen a lot of creative explanations for why the person who broke those marriages is actually the victim. What I'm not seeing here is anything that suggests Mr. Cole acted inappropriately in documenting what was happening." "Your Honor," Gerald tried again, "the sheer extent of Mr. Cole's investigation suggests—" "It suggests he's thorough," the judge interrupted. "It suggests he wanted to understand the scope of his wife's deception before making decisions about his family's future. That's not obsession. That's due diligence." She turned to her notes. "I've reviewed the financial documentation, the hotel charges, the restaurant receipts, the jewelry purchase. All of this occurred during the marriage, using marital funds for the explicit purpose of conducting an extramarital affair." She turned to Victor. "What's the total documented expenditure?" $14,700, Your Honor. We're requesting full reimbursement to the marital estate." "Reasonable, given the documentation." The judge made a note. "Now, regarding custody." This was the part that mattered. Everything else, the money, the property, the division of assets, was just arithmetic. Emma was what I'd been fighting for. Victor presented our case methodically. The 5 months of systematic deception, the exposure of our daughter to the affair. Emma had witnessed the parking lot embrace, even if she hadn't understood what it meant. The deleted emails where Megan had fabricated claims of emotional abuse. The burner phone, hidden in the gym bag, evidence of a premeditated double life. "Mr. Cole isn't asking for sole custody," Victor said. "He's asking for primary physical custody with generous visitation for Mrs. Cole. He wants his daughter to have a relationship with her mother. But he has concerns, legitimate concerns, documented concerns, about his wife's judgment and her willingness to prioritize her child's welfare over her own desires." Megan's attorney argued that none of her conduct had directly harmed Emma. That personal failings in a marriage didn't translate to parenting failures. "Your Honor, whatever Mrs. Cole's mistakes in her marriage, there's no evidence that she's been anything other than a loving and attentive mother. Emma wasn't physically present for any inappropriate conduct. She wasn't exposed to any adult situations. She saw her mother embracing another man in a school parking lot," Victor replied. "She asked her father about it. That's how this entire situation came to light, because an 8-year-old child saw something she didn't understand and asked questions. Children see hugs all the time. This wasn't a hug, and we all know it." Judge Connor held up a hand. "Enough. I've heard both sides." She considered for a long moment, making notes, reviewing the documents spread before her. The silence in the courtroom stretched until it felt like a physical weight. "Mrs. Cole," she said finally, "I don't doubt that you love your daughter. But love and judgment are different things. You conducted an affair on your child's school property. You were observed by your daughter in an intimate embrace with the man you were seeing. You spent 5 months lying to your family, not just to your husband, but to your child as well. Every time you told her you were going to work when you were actually meeting your affair partner, you were teaching her that deception is acceptable." She turned to me. "Mr. Cole, your conduct throughout this process has been measured and methodical. You gathered evidence legally. You didn't confront your wife until you had proper legal representation. You brought concerns about Mr. Thompson's behavior to the school board through appropriate channels. All of this suggests someone who can be trusted to make sound decisions under pressure. I said nothing. Victor had warned me not to speak unless directly asked a question. I'm also noting, the judge continued, that at no point has Mr. Cole attempted to poison his daughter against her mother. According to the child psychologist's report, Emma describes her father as fair and says he's never said anything bad about her mother. That kind of restraint, in a situation this painful, speaks to character. The ruling came down 2 days later. Primary physical custody to me. Megan got alternating weekends and 1 dinner per week. She was ordered to reimburse the marital estate for documented affair-related expenses, $14,700, payable over 18 months. I'd won, completely. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like amputation. 3 weeks after the custody decision, I got a phone call that opened a new chapter. Is this Patrick Cole? The voice was female, shaky but determined. My name is Valerie Thompson. Derek was my husband. I saw the news about the investigation at the school. I found your name in some documents he had. I need to talk to you. I agreed to meet her. Same coffee shop where I'd met Linda Brennan, different table. Valerie Thompson was younger than I'd expected. Mid-30s, blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, the kind of woman who'd probably been striking before life had worn her down. She was wearing an oversized sweater and clutching her coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to reality. I didn't know, she said, before I could even sit down. About any of it. The women, the affairs. I thought he was traveling for work, different districts, different schools. He'd be gone for weeks at a time, and I believed him. I believed everything. How long were you married? 15 years. We have 2 kids, 12 and 14. Her voice cracked. They're asking questions now, about why Daddy's name is in the news. I don't know what to tell them. She'd found things, she told me, after the investigation became public. A second phone, hidden in his toolbox in the garage. Bank accounts she'd never known about. Names of women she didn't recognize. Not just 1 or 2, but dozens. He wasn't just cheating, Valerie said. He was living a completely different life, multiple lives. And I was just the base camp, the home he came back to between expeditions. I told her about Linda Brennan, about the other women who'd come forward, about the pattern that stretched back years, across multiple schools, multiple communities. He's not going to stop, I said. Men like him don't stop on their own. They stop when someone makes them. The teaching license? Suspended. The investigation is ongoing, but with this many witnesses, this much documentation, it's going to be revoked. Permanently. He'll never work in a school again. Valerie started to cry then. Not loud sobs, just tears streaming silently down her face while she stared at the table. Good, she said finally. That's good. At least he can't do this to anyone else's family. I connected Valerie with Linda before we left the coffee shop, gave her the contact information for the other women who'd come forward. By the end of the month, there was an informal coalition, 5 women total, all with stories about Derek Thompson, all willing to provide testimony to the state licensing board. The hearing was in January. I didn't attend, but Victor told me about it afterward. 5 women testifying. Documentation spanning nearly a decade. Character witnesses from 3 different school districts. Derek Thompson's teaching license was permanently revoked. The decision was posted on the State Education Board's website, public and searchable, forever attached to his name. He'd never teach again. Never have access to another school, another vulnerable parent, another opportunity to destroy someone's life for his own entertainment. Life restructured itself around the hole Megan had left. The house felt bigger now, too big for just me and Emma, but I couldn't bring myself to sell it. She'd grown up here, knew every corner and hiding spot, and she'd already lost so much. I wasn't going to take her home away too. We found a rhythm. Breakfast together every morning before school, homework at the kitchen table while I cooked dinner, movies on Friday nights, just the two of us, with popcorn and hot chocolate. Emma started seeing a child therapist, not because she was broken, but because she'd seen things she was too young to understand, and I wanted her to have someone to talk to who wasn't me. Someone objective. Someone trained. She's processing, Dr. Whitfield told me after the third session. She knows something bad happened between you and her mother, but she doesn't fully grasp what. That's actually healthy. She doesn't need the details right now. She needs stability and consistency. Is she angry? At her mother, a little. At you, not at all. Dr. Whitfield smiled. She talks about you a lot, actually. Says you're the person who tells her the truth. Megan tried to rebuild a relationship with me in the months that followed. Not romantic. She wasn't that delusional, but relational. She wanted us to be friends. Co-parents who could chat at drop-offs, maybe grab coffee sometimes, put the ugliness behind us and move on. I let her make her case. At a mediation session in the neutral territory of a conference room, she talked about therapy and self-reflection and how she understood now what she'd done. I'm not the same person I was, she said. I've spent 6 months really looking at myself, at my choices, and I hate what I see. I want to be better. For Emma. And maybe for us, too. Not as a couple, but as people who can be in the same room without hostility. I listened. I didn't interrupt. When she was done, I said, I'll communicate with you about Emma. Drop-off times, school events, doctor's appointments. That's it. Patrick, we're not friends, Megan. We're never going to be friends. You had an affair with our daughter's teacher for 5 months. You spent our money on hotel rooms and gifts. You lied to me every single day. I kept my voice level. But that's not even what I can't forgive. It's the other thing. The emails where you told him I was abusive, where you called me controlling and said you were afraid of me. You rewrote our entire marriage to make yourself the victim. I know what you were trying to do. You were building a defense, creating a narrative, and in the process, you assassinated my character to a stranger, painted me as someone who hurts people, who terrifies his own wife. I stood up. Some things can't be undone, Megan. Some doors don't reopen. I hope you find peace. I hope you're happy. But I'm never going to forget what you said about me. She didn't try again after that. The year turned. Spring came and went. Emma finished 3rd grade and started 4th. She grew 2 inches over the summer and decided she wanted to learn to ride horses. I started seeing someone in July, a woman named Allison Webb, whom I'd met at a cybersecurity conference in Chicago. She worked in risk assessment for a big insurance company. Sharp, funny, self-deprecating in a way that felt genuine rather than performed. We took things slow. Dinner dates, long phone calls. She understood, without me having to explain much, that I was still putting myself back together. You don't have to tell me the whole story, she said one night, 2 months in. Not until you're ready. I just want you to know I'm here. Linda Brennan got her life back too. The truth about Thompson had rippled outward, reaching her ex-husband and her children. Not a full reconciliation. Too much time had passed. Too much damage had been done. But a softening. Her kids started talking to her again. Really talking. She'd called me in September crying to say her son had asked if she wanted to come to his soccer game. First time in 3 years, she said. I didn't even care if he scored. I just wanted to be there. Valerie Thompson divorced Derek, took the kids, took the house, took everything his legal fees hadn't already consumed. Last I heard, he was living in a rented room in another state, selling cars for a dealership. Not a bad life necessarily. Just a smaller one than he'd imagined. Megan remarried the following spring, a guy from her office named Grant something or other. I saw the announcement on social media through a mutual friend. She looked happy in the photos. Maybe she was. I didn't care either way. 2 years after the day Emma asked me about the hug in the parking lot, she came home from school with a homework assignment. "We have to write about someone we admire," she said, spreading her papers across the kitchen table. "It can be anyone. A famous person, a relative, anyone." "Who are you thinking?" "I don't know yet." She chewed her pencil eraser, a habit she'd had since kindergarten. "Maybe a soccer player? Or that scientist who went to Mars?" "She didn't go to Mars," I said. "She helped land the rover." "Same thing." Emma stared at her blank paper for a long moment. Then she looked up at me. "Can I pick you?" I blinked. "Me? You're someone I admire." "Emma, I'm just your dad. Don't you want to write about someone more impressive?" "No." She said it with the absolute certainty only children can muster. "I want to write about you." I didn't argue. I'd learned by then that arguing with Emma was usually pointless. She wrote the paper that night, hunched over the kitchen table while I washed dishes. Wouldn't let me read it until she was finished. "Someone I Admire" by Emma Cole, she read aloud, her voice careful and proud. "The person I admire most is my dad, Patrick Cole. 2 years ago, something really bad happened in our family. I was too little to understand everything, but I know it was hard. My mom moved away and now I live with my dad most of the time." She paused, looked up at me. I nodded for her to continue. "What I admire about my dad is that when the bad thing happened, he didn't yell or say mean things about anyone. He didn't break anything or cry where I could see. He just fixed it. He got a lawyer and went to meetings and made sure everything was okay. And the whole time, he made me breakfast and helped me with my homework and read to me at night. He never stopped being my dad, even when he was dealing with adult stuff." I set down the dish I was drying. "My dad also always tells me the truth," Emma continued. "He doesn't pretend things are fine when they're not. When I asked about Mom, he said that sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt their families, and Mom made some choices like that, but it didn't mean she loved me any less. He never made me feel like I had to pick sides." She looked up again, checking my reaction. I smiled, even though something in my chest felt tight. I know my family is different now. I know I won't have the same kind of family as some of my friends. But I think different can still be good. And I'm lucky because even though everything changed, I still have a dad who loves me and takes care of me and shows me what it looks like to be strong without being mean. That's why I admire him." Emma set the paper down, suddenly shy. "Is it okay? Is it weird that I wrote about you?" I crossed to the table and knelt beside her chair, putting myself at her eye level. "It's not weird," I said. "It's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about me." "Really? Really?" She hugged me then, wrapping her arms around my neck the way she used to when she was small enough to carry. I closed my eyes and held her tight. This kid who'd started everything with an innocent question about a parking lot hug. She pulled back after a minute. "Dad?" "Yeah, sweetheart?" "Can we have ice cream? I finished my homework." I laughed. "Yeah, we can have ice cream." That night, after Emma was asleep and the house was quiet, I sat at the kitchen table and read her paper again. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer, with the other things I wanted to keep forever. Not triumph, not vindication, just peace.